Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is repair. Repair. Now we're on the verge of this relationship between Joseph and his brothers being repaired. We'll see that a little bit more tomorrow as well. But today in Genesis 44, I want us to see that Judah finally does, as yesterday we saw, he took responsibility, stepped up, took responsibility, said, look, I'm going to take care of the family, and I'll even put my neck on the line for it. And what he said before was going to be put to the test here. As you read through the chapter, you see that Joseph has um, he's filled up all their sacks for them to leave. He puts his cup in Benjamin's bag, or has his servants to do it. Sends them on their way, then basically lets them leave. He's setting them up, and then he sends his servants to go out there, go get them, and basically accuse them of stealing the cup, search the bags, bring the one back that has the bag. It's interesting that you have the brothers that'll even speak out. Look, they make a harsh statement, said, look, let him be put to death, whatever, we'll all be slaves, whatever. And then they realize it was Benjamin's. And at least this time we can say this: we know God is working in these brothers because all of the brothers go back. They don't just make Benjamin go back alone, they all go back with him. The story goes on, and as you can read it, as always, I encourage you to read the whole chapter for yourself. But he basically, Joseph says, no, just Benjamin, that's the only one. And then Judah steps up. And he kind of retells the story of how these things are going on, and that, look, his brother is dead, right? Even at this point, they assume that Joseph was dead, right? They knew that he was sold into slavery. His father assumed he was dead, but they also assumed it just because they never saw him again. And then he says something here at the end, and I believe this is what kind of changes the picture for the next chapter and the rest of the story. Notice what he says in Genesis 44, verses 32 through 34 today. For your servant, talking about himself, became surety for the lad to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father forever. Now, therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the lad as a slave to my Lord, and let the lad go up with his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father if the lad is not with me, lest perhaps I see the evil that would come upon my father? The relationship between Judah and Joseph, all the brothers and Joseph, has been put to the test. And that's really what Joseph was doing, was testing to see if they were faithful, if they had changed at all. Some of it, we look at it and say, well, man, he was being spiteful. I have a hard time with that. I think he was testing them. God was testing them to see if they were telling the truth, to see if they would be faithful. But the key here for me today is the fact that Judah finally, he puts his money where his mouth is. And instead of just telling his father that he would be held accountable for it, he steps up and actually puts himself in that place. And he says, I will take Benjamin's place. Let Benjamin go. Now, why did he say this? Well, it's two things, but one thing mainly. He was more concerned with the well-being of his father than he was with his own well-being. Now, in turn, that means that he was more concerned with Benjamin's well-being, but the fact that he had shifted the focus off of himself. Right before, I told you he was stepping up to take responsibility, stepping up to take the lead, stepping up to say, this is what we need to do. And now he steps in to take the place of his brother. No wonder Judah ends up becoming one of the leaders. No wonder the tribe of Judah is the one that Jesus Christ comes through. The one who not only stepped up to take responsibility, but the one that worked to repair the relationship between us and God by stepping in our place to pay a debt that he did not owe. Judah had not done anything wrong in this situation, right? We know he had done plenty wrong before this, and he'll do wrong after this. But that to show us that picture, to give us that glimpse of what it would be like when Christ stepped in. And so to think about Judah now is willing to lay down his life for his brother, willing to lay down his life so his father will live, because he knows that, look, if Benjamin doesn't go back, then his father would end up dying because of the stress and everything else of losing, again, another one of his favorite sons. But I think today what we need to understand is that when we step up to take responsibility that we talked about yesterday, it also involves that, like, one of the first steps in taking responsibility is having that self-sacrificing love for others. If you were in Sunday school this past Sunday, you know that we're talking about the new commandment that Jesus gives, right? What is the greatest commandment? Not the new commandment, but the greatest commandment, he says, is that you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and your neighbor as yourself. So he gives those two commands that summarize everything. Love God with everything you have and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, we'd love to think that was brotherly love, but it wasn't. It was self-sacrificing love for one another. And that's what Judah is displaying here, a self-sacrificing love. And what does that do? But begin to repair the relationship. And we can take this to every relationship we have. And to know that if we will be self-sacrificing in it, the relationship will be repaired. You know, if you read ahead, you see how this relationship will be repaired. If we look to Jesus, who stepped in and repaired our relationship with God the Father, why don't we do the same here on earth? Our relationship to the Father has been restored through Jesus Christ, so we too should extend that to our brothers and sisters, to be willing to lay down our life for another, to be willing to lay our own desires aside for the well-being of another, for the salvation of another. Today, what relationship do you need to repair? God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.